What kind of hotel turns away a woman carrying a backpack and a toddler? Kellan Tate stared at the security footage paused on his laptop screen. He didn't know the woman's name, but he couldn't shake the image of her standing at the front desk of his third hotel location, shifting her tired child from one hip to the other while a front desk agent motioned toward the exit. It wasn't the first red flag that week. A recent dip in online reviews for 2 of his 8 boutique hotels had caught his attention. Words like unwelcoming and pretentious showed up too often. Kellan had bought the hotel chain 4 years ago, back when it was rapidly expanding but bleeding money. He turned that around, but in doing so, he delegated more than he liked. He hadn't set foot in the Midtown location in over a year. That changed now. He called his assistant that night. "Clear my next 3 days," he said. "I'm going undercover at Midtown." He'd never met most of the newer staff in person. With thousands of employees across 8 branches, it was easy enough to disappear among them. He grew out his beard, wore thick glasses, and tucked his hair under a faded baseball cap. He dressed in cargo pants and a wrinkled button-down, looking more like a tired tourist than a CEO. He arrived on a Tuesday morning, rolling a scuffed carry-on behind him. The Midtown Hotel sat between 2 high-end shops, with a gold-plated logo above the entrance and a doorman stationed just outside. The man was tall, mid-40s maybe, dressed in full uniform, white gloves, polished shoes, and a long black coat. Kellan approached the entrance, eyes low. He kept his voice quiet. "Hey, checking in." "Room under a Travis Gordon." The doorman didn't open the door. Kellan looked up. The man glanced at his bag, then at his shoes. "We're fully booked," he said flatly, even though Kellan had reserved a room under a fake name the night before. "I have a reservation," Kellan said. "Travis Gordon. Checked in online." The doorman sighed. "You sure you're in the right place, sir? This isn't a hostel." Kellan's jaw tightened. He wasn't used to being spoken to like that. "I'm in the right place," he said. The doorman gave a fake chuckle and finally opened the door. Inside, the front desk agent confirmed the reservation without issue. Kellan made his way to the elevator, but not before glancing back through the glass doors. The doorman was now greeting another guest young couple, designer luggage, dressed like they walked out of a magazine. The man tipped his hat and opened the door with a smile. Kellan's stomach turned. The next morning, he dressed the same and sat in the lobby with a notebook, pretending to be a travel writer. He watched the doorman whose name tag read Victor for 3 hours. It wasn't subtle. People with backpacks, worn shoes, or old luggage were ignored or spoken to coldly. One older man with a limp asked for directions and was brushed off with a fake smile and a "try Google, sir." But when a man in a tailored suit walked up, Victor greeted him like royalty. Around noon, a woman in her 20s approached with a little boy, maybe 5. The kid held a stuffed dinosaur and wore a superhero hoodie. The woman looked nervous. Kellan leaned forward. "Hi, I'm here to see about a room," she said. Victor looked her up and down. "We don't do walk-ins." "I saw online it said to call or come in." "Yeah, online's outdated." Victor cut her off. "Try somewhere else." The boy tugged his mom's hand. "I'm hungry," he whispered. Kellan stood. The woman looked embarrassed. "Please, I'll just talk to someone inside." Victor stepped in front of the door. "I'm not letting you in to loiter. There's a motel 3 blocks down." Kellan walked toward them. "Excuse me," he said, still in character. "She just needs to talk to the front desk." Victor didn't move.
"Who are you?"
"Just someone who doesn't like bullies," Kellan said quietly. Victor narrowed his eyes. "You staying here?" Kellan raised his key card. "And I'm seriously rethinking that." Victor scoffed but stepped aside. The woman rushed in with her son, mouthing a soft thank you to Kellan. Kellan followed her in, waited until she reached the front desk, then walked to the elevator without a word. Upstairs, in his room, he sat on the edge of the bed. His hands trembled. He'd spent years building a company that welcomed people from all walks of life. And now, this? He opened his notebook and wrote one word in bold. Unacceptable. He wasn't done watching.
Not yet.
But Victor's days were numbered. Kellan sat alone in the staff break room the next morning, nursing a paper cup of weak coffee and wearing a maintenance uniform with the name tag Gordon. The facilities manager had assigned him to basic tasks, taking out trash, replacing light bulbs, checking ice machines, nothing that required credentials. It gave him access to nearly every floor, and more importantly, it gave him time to observe. He kept his head down and listened. The break room door creaked open. 2 employees walked in, both in housekeeping polos. One was in her early 20s, the other closer to 40. They dropped into the chairs across from Kellan, pulling their packed lunches from brown bags. "That front desk guy, Marcus," the older woman said, peeling back the foil from her sandwich. "He sent me to clean a room that still had guests in it." "Again?" The younger woman groaned. "He did that to me last week. I knocked, and this guy in a towel looked at me like I was breaking in. Management doesn't care." "We're just names on a schedule," the older woman said. Kellan kept scribbling notes in his pocket notebook, pretending to fill out a maintenance checklist. Every time he heard the same name surface, Marcus, Victor, it was never for anything good. He spent the next several hours shadowing a real maintenance worker, Jerome, a quiet man in his 50s with a limp and a calm, methodical way of moving through his tasks. Jerome didn't say much, but when he did, it mattered. While repairing a noisy vent on the 3rd floor, Jerome looked over and said, "You knew?" Kellan nodded. "Yeah. Just doing a few shifts." Jerome examined the vent blades, then flicked the switch off. "Watch yourself around Marcus. He likes to talk down to folks who can't talk back." Noted. Jerome didn't press. But when they wrapped up, he let Kellan walk with him to the service elevator. As they waited, Jerome added, "You seem like you listen. People don't do that here anymore." Kellan said nothing, but the words stayed with him. That afternoon, Kellan was assigned to assist with room turnover. He followed one of the housekeeping staff, a woman named Sophia, who moved with practiced efficiency. She was polite, focused, and careful, checking behind curtains, straightening each object on the desk, folding towels with precision. After they finished a suite, she leaned against the doorframe. Her arms trembled slightly. "You okay?"
Kellan asked.
"I'll be fine." "You sure?" She nodded, but didn't meet his eyes. "They cut our team down to 4 people last month. We're supposed to clean 20 rooms a day. I haven't had a lunch break in 3 weeks." Kellan stared at her. "That's not sustainable." "Tell Marcus," she said, pushing her cart down the hall. He didn't follow. He couldn't. Not yet. Later that evening, he returned to the lobby. Not as Gordon, not in uniform. Just as another guest with rumpled clothing and a tired expression. Victor was back. 3 people approached one after another. An older woman with a rolling suitcase that had duct tape on the handle. A young couple with a baby strapped to the father's chest. A man in a delivery uniform asking for directions to a conference room. Each time, Victor barely acknowledged them. He waved them off, gave clipped replies, or outright ignored questions. When a middle-aged man wearing a Rolex walked up, Victor opened the door with a gracious nod and a "Welcome back, sir." Kellan stepped forward and held the door open for the couple with the baby. Victor turned. "Don't do that." Kellan looked at him. "You mean don't help people? You're not paid to be a greeter." "I'm not paid at all," Kellan said. "Not for this." Victor squinted at him. "You again?" Kellan didn't answer. He headed inside. The lobby felt colder now. Not in temperature, but in atmosphere. Guests passed through quickly, conversations were hushed, and the front desk staff seemed tense, glancing at Marcus every time they spoke. Kellan waited until Marcus took a phone call and leaned over the concierge counter. The concierge was a thin man with wire-frame glasses and a nervous energy. "Hey," Kellan said quietly. "Can I ask you something?" The concierge looked up. "Sure." That guy, Kellan said, nodding toward Marcus. He always like that? The concierge hesitated. It's not really my place, off the record. The man exhaled. He's been running the desk for 8 months. He doesn't respect half the staff. He plays favorites with scheduling, shuts people down if they ask for help, and if anyone makes a mistake, he writes them up before they've even had a chance to explain. Why hasn't anyone reported it? We have. Upper management doesn't respond. Or they do, and then nothing changes.
Kellan looked at him.
Has he ever said anything personal? The concierge went quiet for a beat. Then he said, he told a guest last month that we don't serve people who look like they just walked off a bus from nowhere. She was Latina. She left in tears. Kellan's chest tightened. Did anyone speak to her? He asked.
No.
Marcus told us not to. Kellan stepped back. He didn't need to hear more. He returned to his room, opened his laptop, and called the regional HR director directly. It was after hours, but she picked up.
It's Kellan, he said.
I'm at Midtown. I need you here first thing tomorrow. We're terminating 2 employees. I'll handle the conversations myself. The next morning, Victor arrived at his usual time. He straightened his coat, adjusted his gloves, and looked up to see Kellan waiting for him just inside the lobby doors. This time in a suit. Victor paused. Can I help you? You can come inside, Kellan said. Victor stepped in, confused. Do I know you? You will, Kellan said, then nodded to the HR director standing a few feet away. She handed Victor a sealed envelope. What is this? Your final paycheck and a formal notice of termination. Victor froze.
Wait.
For what? For violating our guest service policy, for discriminatory behavior, and for creating a hostile environment at the entrance of this hotel. This must be some mistake. It's not, Kellan said. I've been watching you. So have the cameras. We have everything we need. Victor's face changed. You're the guy. The one with the backpack. Kellan didn't blink. I'm also the CEO. Victor opened his mouth, then closed it again. He looked at the HR rep, then back at Kellan and walked out. Kellan didn't stop to watch him go. Instead, he walked straight to the front desk. Marcus was mid-conversation with a staff member when he noticed Kellan approaching. His voice dropped. Can I help you? You can step into the office with me, Kellan said. I'm with a guest now. Marcus followed, stiff with confusion. Inside the back office, Kellan closed the door. You know who I am? Marcus nodded slowly. Yes, sir. Then you know this conversation is not a courtesy. It's a conclusion. If something's wrong, I'd like the chance to explain. You've had chances, Kellan said. You've dismissed staff concerns, created a culture of fear, and treated guests with open contempt. I've spoken to 3 employees who've documented incidents. I've reviewed security footage. I've seen enough. Marcus's jaw tightened. I've kept this place running. You've kept people from thriving. There's a difference. Kellan handed him a folder. Your access is revoked. Your employment ends today. HR will follow up on severance. Marcus stood there, stunned. Kellan didn't wait for a response. He opened the door and walked out. The front desk staff looked up as he re-entered the lobby. Kellan met their eyes one by one. You're not imagining things, he said. And things are going to change. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He'd seen enough to know the damage wasn't isolated, and fixing it would take more than firings. But it started here, with truth, with accountability, with finally showing up. The following morning, Kellan arrived at the Midtown Hotel 2 hours earlier than usual. The sky over the city was still gray with the last stretch of dawn, and a thin mist clung to the sidewalks. By the time he stepped through the lobby doors, the overnight front desk clerk was just finishing her shift. Her name was Tasha, a quiet, detail-oriented woman in her 30s with a sharp memory and a habit of double-checking everything before she signed off. Kellan had reviewed her personnel file the night before. She'd never once called out, never been late, flawless guest reviews under her name. And yet, she was scheduled 6 nights a week. "Morning," he said as he stepped behind the counter. Tasha looked up, startled. "Mr. Tate.
I
Didn't expect you this early." "I'm not here to observe," he said. "I'm here to listen. You have 10 minutes. She hesitated, then nodded. They sat in the back office, the same one where Marcus had stood 20 hours earlier. Kellan didn't ask surface-level questions.
He didn't need to.
"How long have you been covering the overnight shift alone?" he asked. "Since Ron left in January. Management said they'd hire someone new, but it never happened." "Who followed up?"
No one.
"They stopped responding after a few weeks. I emailed twice. Came in early once to ask Marcus directly, but he said to just hold tight." "And no adjustment to your pay?" She shook her head.
Kellan stood.
"Go home and rest. Your schedule's being restructured. Starting tonight, you'll have coverage. I'll handle it." Tasha sat still for a moment, too surprised to answer. Before he left the office, Kellan turned back. "You shouldn't have had to carry that alone. You're not invisible here. Not anymore." By mid-morning, Kellan had already met with the assistant general manager, a woman named Rhea, who'd been quietly running the day-to-day for nearly a year. She'd been passed over for promotion twice, once when Marcus was brought in, and again when the corporate team installed an acting area manager above her without notice. Her frustration wasn't loud. It was practical, efficient. She had 3 binders on her desk, one for operations, one for staffing logs, and one labeled simply problems. Kellan flipped through the third. Broken equipment marked as fixed. Complaints edited before submission. Staff requests for time off denied, despite adequate coverage. He recognized the pattern instantly. Someone had been actively protecting metrics, not people. "Why didn't you escalate this to corporate?" he asked. "I did," Rhea said.
Twice.
"Then I was told to keep things steady. I took that to mean keep my head down." "You won't be doing that anymore." She didn't smile. She just nodded once. Later that day, Kellan joined the afternoon housekeeping meeting. They gathered in a narrow back corridor behind the laundry room, where 10 employees leaned against the walls or sat on overturned crates. The supervisor, a man named Luis, read out the day's assignments while scanning a clipboard. He looked overworked but organized. Kellan stepped forward. "I want to speak with you directly before we go into another shift." All eyes turned to him. "I've spent the past few days watching how this hotel actually runs. Not the version I get in reports. The real one. And I've seen people pushed beyond their limits without acknowledgement. I've seen broken systems that leave you to pick up the pieces." One of the younger housekeepers, a woman with dyed red hair and heavy under-eye circles, raised her hand. "My cousin was let go last month over a 20-minute delay. Her cart jammed in the freight elevator. No one even asked what happened." Luis didn't interrupt her. Neither did Kellan. "That's changing," Kellan said. "Effective immediately, every disciplinary action will require a written review by both the supervisor and HR. No more one-sided decisions. And no more write-ups for things outside your control." A man near the back crossed his arms. "You saying that now? But we've heard that kind of thing before. People come in, make promises, and then it's back to the grind." "I won't ask you to trust my words," Kellan said. "Judge me by what happens next." He paused. "There's a reason I didn't come in a suit the first time. I needed to see what people were willing to hide from me. And I saw it. Now I'm here to fix it." After the meeting, Kellan walked with Luis down the service hallway. "You've been holding this team together," he said. Luis gave a tired laugh. "Barely. You're getting 2 new hires by the end of next week. You'll help write the job postings. And I want you reporting directly to Rhea going forward." Luis blinked. "You're serious?" "Completely." As he stepped out of the hallway, he was approached by a server from the lobby cafe. The young man looked uneasy. "Can I talk to you privately?" he asked. They ducked into a side room used for catering supplies. The server didn't waste time. "There's something I think you need to see. A few nights ago, a guest was trying to use a food voucher. She didn't speak much English. Marcus was still here then. He came behind the counter, told me not to honor it, and said, 'We're not running a soup kitchen.'" Kellan stared at him. "She left crying," the server added. "I didn't know what to do. You did the right thing by telling me." "I should have stopped him." Kellan shook his head. "The responsibility was never yours. It was mine. I let someone like that hold power in my company. That ends here." He took the rest of the afternoon to meet with the regional training director. Together, they rewrote the guest service policy to include a zero-tolerance clause for discriminatory language, with mandatory reporting channels that bypass local management. A new internal hotline was activated that same day. By early evening, the lobby felt different. Kellan stood near the entrance, watching as a mother and her teenage son wheeled in 2 plastic suitcases. Their shoes were worn, their clothes simple. The new concierge, a woman Rhea had recommended and fast-tracked into training, greeted them with a genuine smile. "Welcome," she said. "Do you already have a reservation, or can I help find you a room?" The boy looked around wide-eyed. The mother hesitated, unsure. "We can check if there's something within your budget," the concierge added. "We also have flexible rates for last-minute bookings." The mother nodded slowly. Kellan stepped back, unnoticed, and exhaled. That night, he returned to his own room and sat by the window, looking out over the city. He didn't feel triumphant. He felt responsible. He pulled out a notepad and began writing. Not a speech, not a memo, but a plan. The Midtown Hotel wouldn't be fixed in a day. But it would never again be a place where people were judged before they spoke, ignored when they needed help, or punished for not fitting someone else's idea of who belonged. The next week, he'd return as himself. No hidden identity. No disguise. He'd walk through the front door like every other guest and make sure everyone else could, too. Kellan returned to the Midtown Hotel exactly 9 days after the final termination meeting. This time, he entered through the front doors in plain daylight, no disguise, no hesitation. A light drizzle tapped at the revolving glass as he stepped inside, nodding to the new doorman, a soft-spoken veteran named Randall who greeted every guest regardless of appearance with the same practiced courtesy. Inside, the lobby was quieter than usual. Not empty, but calmer. The kind of calm that comes not from silence, but from the absence of tension. Staff moved with purpose instead of panic. Guests lingered longer at the cafe. The concierge desk, now staffed by 2 employees instead of 1, had a neat queue system and a new welcome board listing services in 5 languages. Kellan headed to the staff room behind the front desk. Rhea was already there, seated with a small group of team leads. She had a notepad open and a whiteboard behind her with 3 sections: immediate fixes, systemic issues, and staff recommendations. He waited until the discussion wrapped up before speaking. "I'm not here to micromanage," he said. "I'm here to close the loop." Rhea stood. "We're ready." They walked together through the hotel for the next hour. Not a tour, an audit. They stopped by the linen staging area, still short-staffed, but now reorganized with shelf labels and a rotating schedule to prevent burnout. They checked the new maintenance log system, which now required dual sign-offs to prevent false completion reports. Kellan reviewed the new hiring board, 3 new roles posted, all based on first-hand feedback from the team. Small steps, but deliberate. When they reached the staff cafeteria, Luis was finishing a quick lunch with 2 new hires. He stood when he saw Kellan and gave a nod, not deferential, just respectful. Kellan gestured to the empty chair across from him. "Mind if I ask you something?" Luis waved to the newcomers. "You 2 go ahead. I'll catch up." They sat. "What's the one thing you still don't have that you need?"
Kellan asked.
Luis didn't pause. "Time for training. We're still moving too fast. I'm teaching on the fly." Kellan pulled out his phone and jotted something down. We'll make space for it. You'll get 2 floaters part-time, flexible hours. That'll buy you the margin. Luis nodded. Good. It wasn't praise. It was verification. Later that day, Kellan convened a full team meeting for the front-of-house staff. He didn't stand behind a podium or speak from a script. He pulled a chair into the open and sat in the center of the lounge, surrounded by employees in cafe aprons, concierge jackets, bellhop uniforms, and front desk polos. I saw more in 5 days undercover than I'd seen in 5 months of reports, he began. And what I saw made one thing clear. We lost our way. A young woman with short hair and a cafe name tag raised her hand. Do you think it's possible to fix that? Without just changing faces? I don't believe in quick fixes, Kellan replied. We're not changing the people who work here. We're changing how they're supported and what's expected of the people in charge. Randall, the new doorman, leaned forward slightly. What happens if this place slips again? Then I've failed, Kellan said, without flinching. But I don't plan to disappear again. Midtown is shifting to a rotational audit schedule. Every quarter, I or someone from corporate will be here. Unannounced. Not to catch you, but to catch what you've been carrying. A murmur passed through the room, not fear, but relief. After the meeting, Kellan walked back toward the lobby. The concierge desk was now staffed by Maribel and Dante, both internal promotions. Maribel had once nearly quit after being ignored during a major event rollout. Now, she was managing the daily guest flow with calm precision, greeting guests with confident warmth. Everything holding together?
Kellan asked.
Maribel looked up from a tablet she was using to check a list of incoming VIP guests. We had to reroute a delivery earlier to avoid crowding the valet area.
Dante handled it.
No delay. Good judgment, Kellan said. Keep making calls like that. Back near the cafe, Tasha was meeting with a representative from the scheduling department. She caught Kellan's eye and gave a short nod acknowledgement, not gratitude. Her schedule had been adjusted to include 2 nights off per week and a rotating co-clerk for coverage. She still worked hard. But now, she wasn't alone. In the late afternoon, Kellan walked the sidewalk perimeter of the building. He stopped near the spot where he'd once seen Victor block a woman and her child from entering. It looked like any other stretch of sidewalk now. But he remembered the way her shoulders slumped when she was turned away. The way the boy whispered he was hungry. He'd never learned their names. But he hadn't forgotten them. He pulled out his phone, opened the company's central policy document, and added a new clause, one final safeguard. No employee may prevent a guest from entering based on appearance, attire, perceived economic status, or language ability. Any violation results in immediate termination. There was no room for ambiguity.
No gray zonas.
The margins where discrimination hides had to be closed. That evening, Kellan returned to the lobby one last time. A family of 4 entered, parents, 2 teens, modest luggage. They looked uncertain as they stepped inside. Randall greeted them, held the door, and offered a hand with their bags without a second of hesitation. Kellan crossed the marble floor toward the front desk, where Rhea had just finished reviewing the shift schedule. I'm not coming back tomorrow, he said. Rhea gave a slow nod. Understood. But I'll be back. And I'll be watching what happens when no one thinks I'm watching. He turned to leave, but Rhea spoke up. Why'd you come here in the first place? Out of all 8 properties. Kellan paused. Because someone was turned away for looking like they didn't belong, he said. And I built these hotels to make people feel like they do. He stepped into the revolving door and disappeared into the city's rhythm. Inside, the hotel kept moving quieter, steadier, better. Not perfect, but no longer blind.